So Pokemon Horizons has a upcoming episode that will feature the return of beloved Pokemon Contests. Whether it's the real contest that we all remember and love, probably not, but it's cool that we're going to be seeing it return in some sort of shape. It's most likely going to be similar to the Pokemon Journeys kind of contest. Pokemon contests were first introduced in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and well, we're not here to talk about them because they pale in comparison to their anime counterpart. The Pokemon anime took Pokemon contests to the next level. So what happened to them? The Advanced Generation gave us a new exciting journey to look forward to, and that was May and her aspirations to become a top coordinator. At first she didn't really know what she wanted to travel, but seeing the beauty of contests, the unique combinations and cool Pokemon that you can use in these events inspired her, and also for us viewers gave us someone else to root for. We no longer had to wait all this time just for Ash to battle in his next gym. We had more competitions to watch and more excitement to follow, and that's the best thing Pokemon Contest did for the anime. The format of a Pokemon Contest was really solid too, starting with the appeal round where you and your Pokemon just try to wow the judges, getting the highest score possible, combining moves in unique ways and just making the crowd go wild. It was such a good way to show off what kind of coordinator you were and what kind of Pokemon you raised. You had the likes of Drew never wasting a move, using each one to complement the other. He was very slick and one of the best around. Then you had the likes of Harley, who would basically scare the judges and crowd into getting through. He would use spooky, creepy Pokemon in ways that others wouldn't, so he would get through on his uniqueness alone. Jessie, when she wasn't cheating, would try to focus on the bond with her Pokemon. Every time her actual relationship with them came through, she would usually get to the next round. And then of course May didn't really have a set style. She would try to match what was best for her specific Pokemon. Every time we saw her catch a new one, she would try to bring the best out of them. But the appeal rounds were great to show off these characters, and then if you get through, it's on to battle rounds, where it's basically just a Pokemon battle, but you have to dwindle down the opponent's points and add a bit of spectacle to it. The more dazzling the moves, the better. But a lot of the time we saw May just brute force her way through these battles, because that was another option too. I think May learning so much from Ash about his battle style, she really took after him and brought that over to contests. But the contest formula was so good, it worked so well, fans loved it, and that is why it made a return in Diamond and Pearl, where we have Dawn, who sets out from day one to be a coordinator, to follow in her mother's footsteps. I always say a lot of the Advanced Generation and May especially walked so that Dawn and Diamond and Pearl could run. Basically they really perfected the art of the contest in Diamond and Pearl. I feel like they were just so much better. Quite a lot of the Hoenn contests I found myself getting frustrated of how quick the points would swing. May would be getting dominated for the whole battle, and then she pulls out one quick move and it just swings right back her way. I feel Diamond and Pearl fixed a lot of these small issues and made contests more balanced and focused. Dawn was given so many great friends and rivals. Zoe was such a good addition, kind of taking that role from Drew, but she was a lot closer of a friend to Dawn. Every time Dawn was in a slump or needed some help, Zoe would appear to break down what is actually going on, what she did do wrong. One time when Dawn was focusing too much on the moves, Zoe points out that your Pokemon is lost within all the theatrics, and you really need to let the Pokemon shine first and foremost. They started to make contests feel more real and give it way more depth. And not to mention the Wallace Cup, one of the best tournament arcs in the anime, where we even get the return of May and a showdown between her and Dawn in the final. This was so hype. You'd even have random times where Ash would compete because he wanted to get something out of it.
What does he think he's doing?
Hell, even Brock competed in a contest back in the Advanced Generation for a girl. It just opened the door for so many fun elements and episodes. Introducing some of the best rivals, Drew and Zoe are still top tier rivals in the anime overall, and there's even iconic ones like Harley and Nando. So finally, let's actually talk about what happened to contests. They were so popular, such a staple of the series, and in Black and White they were gone. Like a lot of things, Black and White reset the norm in the anime and got rid of Pokemon contests. They didn't want to do a third coordinator in a row, and I guess they were worried about the risk of it going stale, which is pretty valid, but I don't really mind it because Iris had a unique goal and she's so well written, especially including the battle tournaments, which were kind of a replacement for contests. We would get these big Don George tournaments where everyone would compete, from rivals to all of our main characters, and honestly it was such a underrated part of Universe, but they wouldn't crop up as much as contests, and it still feels like a big hole was left without contests. It just became such a staple in the series. And then we got to X and Y and we saw Serena, a similar path to May, with her not knowing what she wanted to do. She starts off just following Ash around. Her mum wanted her to carry on with the Rhyhorn racing, but the journey was about her discovering what she wanted, and she found Pokemon Showcases, which were basically a knockoff of Pokemon Contests, let's be honest. Showcases for me are the weakest part of the series. They're very dull and forgettable. They try to be unique in the different challenges that the trainers do, but I think everyone can agree that if you brought back contests in the way it was intended, it would have just been better. And by the end of XY, Serena ends up becoming a coordinator anyway. She travels to compete in Hoenn Pokemon Contests, so it all felt a bit pointless. I'd have rather seen her just from the start, and I think again they were worried about copying May and her discovering what she wanted to do, but we could have had another damn Wallace Cup in Kalos, where May and Dawn returned. But let's be honest, XY didn't like its continuity, so I doubt it. And then that leaves us in this weird middle ground where we haven't seen a proper Pokemon contest since Diamond and Pearl. We know Serena is off in Hoenn doing it, but we haven't seen it. However, jump to Pokemon Journeys and we have the mention of contests back. We see Dawn again, and we know her mum is judging a contest and Dawn is supposed to be competing, but we don't see it. And then we get announced that Serena is returning, and we are getting a whole episode on contests with Wallace and Licia. We were hyped. So contests were brought back after many years, and they weren't the same thing we remembered. The contest that we saw was basically similar to a showcase where you just kind of dance around with your Pokemon. No sign of my boy Mr. Sukizo, the remarkable goat. No sign of Mr. Contester. It was a fraud of an imitation. I feel as the anime went on, contests were just forgotten, and at the point that they finally did bring them back, they didn't want to faff around and bring back the old ways. They wanted to do more what the games were like. They wanted something quick and easy, and it was pretty disappointing with how beloved the old contests were. It was a shame that we had such a big chance to get one more bit of greatness and we never did. So I feel like the Horizons contests are going to be very similar to the one that we saw in Pokemon Journeys, but can you imagine my boy Sukizo pops up and says Lico's performance was remarkable? If that happens, I'll give everyone who watches this video a cookie. But how do you feel about contests? Do you wish they never left? Is there any chance of seeing them come back in their real form? They're slowly becoming a forgotten gem of an old school era, and it's a shame because they were such a big part of the Advanced Generation and Diamond and Pearl, and they should always be remembered.